Welcome to the Deep Dive Books channel, where we hope you find something valuable every day.
This video addresses questions from several friends regarding Brian Klaas' book, Fluke. Below are our responses for your reference. Question 1. In a previous discussion about football, you mentioned that having multiple schools of thought in an industry indicates immaturity. Mature industries tend to have only one dominant approach, forcing everyone into intense competition. How does that differ from today's topic? Response. That's correct. If everyone participates in a single domain, it's only a matter of time before the optimal strategy is discovered and universally adopted. Football is a prime example of such intense competition. While tactics in football continue to evolve due to advancements in training, the top leagues have become remarkably similar in playing styles, with even player rosters being interchangeable. However, football doesn't represent the entirety of society or the economy. In the real world, you can always invent new domains. The leap from bicycles to motorcycles or electric bikes introduces entirely different dynamics. Similarly, innovations like facial recognition payment systems emerge as new opportunities from traditional mobile payments. Football represents a kind of artificial competition, much like China's ancient imperial examination system. There was a fixed syllabus, a set of required skills, and intense competition to the point where everyone mastered the art of writing essays. In the final rounds, rankings were often determined by calligraphy. Question 2. Based on the concepts of basins of attraction and tipping points, does this imply that global economic cycles will become shorter and more volatile in the future? From a broader perspective, could events like the 2008 financial crisis, in a way, have mitigated the possibility of an even greater crisis? I understand rigidly applying these ideas may not be ideal, but does this line of thinking align with the chapter's concepts? Response. Economic crises are indeed a fitting topic for this discussion. The economy is a complex system, prone to instability, much like a pile of sand. Modern economies operate with higher efficiency, tighter interconnections, and faster signal transmission. In this sense, the economic system has become more unstable. However, it is also the most studied complex system, and humans have long devised countermeasures. Most notably, central banks. Historically, economic cycles have actually lengthened, fluctuations have diminished, and the destructive power of crises has largely been contained. This graph, featured in our channel's discussion of Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money, illustrates U.S. economic recessions as black lines. That said, whether these interventions are truly effective remains a subject of debate. Let's briefly review the logic of economic crises and regulation. If each market participant acted independently, investing when opportunities arise and abstaining otherwise, there would be no economic crises. Crises occur because confidence among players synchronizes, creating collective swings in behavior, much like high-density locust swarms. Here's how it typically unfolds. Initially, the economy operates normally. Efficient businesses thrive while inefficient ones are eliminated. Then, a group of entrepreneurs achieves a major innovation. They introduce a groundbreaking, highly popular product, transforming an industry and boosting market optimism. It's like a gold rush. More prospectors mean more opportunities for those selling shovels or running nearby businesses, creating a thriving market. Even if you hadn't planned to invest, the booming market might tempt you to join. This adds another grain of sand to the pile. As more players enter, banks eagerly provide loans, factories expand, wages rise, and consumers spend more. Stock and housing prices soar. This growth inflates into a bubble. A bubble, while hard to quantify, is qualitatively defined as a distortion of market signals. Inefficient businesses that should fail instead survive. Workers who should reskill or switch industries stay put. This persistence is fueled by the belief that growth will continue indefinitely. However, bubbles inevitably burst. Growth relies on new entrants, but eventually, there are no more takers. Like when housing demand fails to match construction. Confidence then collapses. At first, banks respond by raising interest rates and tightening lending. Eventually, people rush to sell assets, marking the crisis's onset. Economic crises are part of the cycle, the flip side of boom periods. High confidence inevitably leads to low confidence. This cycle is asymmetric. Growth during booms is gradual, but crises unfold rapidly because fear outpaces greed. Yet greed is essential for economic growth, driving risk-taking, innovation, and new opportunities. Classical economists view this as natural. Economic cycles are like seasons, inevitable and self-correcting. Why intervene? This was the prevailing mindset before the Great Depression of the 1930s. The Great Depression, however, didn't self-correct. Today, it's believed that the Federal Reserve exacerbated it by raising interest rates to preserve the gold standard during the downturn, discouraging investment, and deepening the crisis. A mistake later central banks avoided. The Depression prompted immediate action, leading to Roosevelt's New Deal and Keynesian economics. These introduced demand-side policies, advocating government intervention during crises using two tools. 1. Monetary policy. Adjusting interest rates and credit availability to influence business investment. 2. Fiscal policy. Direct government spending to stimulate economic activity and restore confidence. Economists agree that monetary policy should be prioritized since it's a fairer, systemic adjustment. Fiscal policy, where the government acts as a market player, risks favoritism and protecting inefficiencies, potentially stifling innovation. Critics like Friedrich Hayek argue that government intervention disrupts natural market corrections. Proponents, however, believe intervention is essential to prevent prolonged crises, like the Great Depression. The history of central bank interventions suggests they've avoided major crises but at the cost of rising debt. Monetary and fiscal policies essentially involve borrowing, either by governments or businesses. Ideally, debts incurred during crises should be repaid during booms. Yet governments rarely do so, preferring to fuel further growth. Ray Dalio posits that such interventions delay, rather than prevent, crises. Eventually, debt reaches unsustainable levels, triggering systemic collapse. Allowing smaller, periodic crises could prevent larger catastrophes. Akin to controlled burns in forests to prevent massive wildfires. Some economists question whether repeated interventions lose effectiveness. If market players anticipate these measures, confidence may falter regardless. In summary, one camp argues that government intervention is ineffective or harmful, while another insists it's necessary. With less than a century since the Great Depression, there isn't enough historical data to settle the debate. The worst-case scenario is a total reset. Debt wiped out, and everyone starting anew. It's not the end of the world, just a new cycle. An intriguing idea floated recently suggests a different outcome. With the imminent arrival of the singularity and unprecedented prosperity, why not borrow now? Future wealth could easily repay today's debts. Whether this is a game of hot potato or a rolling snowball remains uncertain. With so many variables, the ending is anyone's guess. Question 3. Does the desire to control stem from poverty and scarcity? I'm particularly curious why some people want to control everything. Response. Poverty and scarcity can indeed make people crave certainty in their income, often reflected in a desire to control their environment. However, many people don't just want to control things. They want to control situations, outcomes, and especially other people. This control impulse likely stems from two psychological needs. The first is power. As Robert M. Sapolsky explains in Behave, social mammals like baboons have hierarchies where dominant individuals monopolize resources and suppress subordinates. Those subjected to suppression often alleviate their frustration by exerting control over weaker members. In human society, although politics and systems like Confucian rituals have softened the dominance hierarchy, these structures still exist. In societies where internal competition is fierce and hierarchies are rigid, people often become hypersensitive to power and control. Those with power suppress those with less, and those without power might vent this control impulse on their children or subordinates. For instance, some parents or teachers claim their strictness benefits the child, but in reality, it often satisfies their need for control. The second source of control is insecurity. If someone assumes that unfamiliar people and situations are inherently dangerous or hostile, they'll want to manage everything around them. For example, in some companies, managers instinctively believe employees should only do what is explicitly permitted or assigned, leaving no room for creativity. Similarly, some parents think every action their child takes should serve a goal, like getting into college. If it doesn't help, they assume it's harmful. These same people, as bosses, might obsessively monitor their employees, expecting strict adherence to their directives. This need for control is dangerous because it's inherently invasive. If you yield some space today, they'll seek to control more tomorrow. Report your outings today, and tomorrow, they'll demand to check your phone. Such control only stops when confronted by stronger forces, much like Russia encountering NATO. For individuals or nations like Russia, if this impulse for control persists, it inevitably leads to resistance. In their worldview, peace is merely temporary. A pause to gather strength for the next expansion. Even if they control everything, they'll fear internal dissent or liberalization. For them, control justifies their power. Both the pursuit of power and the quest for security are rooted in a black and white worldview. If I'm not controlling you, you must be controlling me. If something doesn't benefit me, it must harm me. If you're not my servant, you must be my enemy. Modern life isn't this binary. But if someone grows up in a harsh, hostile environment, constantly experiencing oppression and distrust, they're likely to adopt this mindset, determined to control everything one day. To overcome the urge to control, one must develop an awareness of rights and boundaries. A society where everyone seeks to dominate each other cannot be harmonious. Harmony requires that each individual respects their own rights and acknowledges others' boundaries. As modern individuals, we must trust that evolution knows better than we do. A game a child is tinkering with, even if you don't understand it, might be more beneficial for their growth than a workbook you can comprehend. Even if it isn't helpful, the child still has a right to play. Similarly, companies and individuals doing things beyond your control are rarely threats. Often, they might surprise you with positive outcomes. Even if they don't, it's still their right to act independently.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.